Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome everyone to the Township of Malahide regular meeting of council and committee of the whole on November 21st and calling the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Next, let's look at the agenda. Anything to add or change? Deputy Mayor Widner?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to have another brief update about Highway 73 north of Elmer. We have some more changes coming, so I just thought I'd bring that up.
So we'll put that in the committee of the whole, the unfinished business update. Okay, thank you. Anything else? Councillor Wilson.
I'd like to speak on a few things of cuts from Thames Valley hitting our schools.
So this is again for community interest, so we'll put that in announcement. It's
Okay.
not council business
Okay.
per se. Okay. So announcements. Okay, anything else? Seeing nothing, may I have the motion, please?
That the November 21st, 2024 regular council meeting agenda be approved as presented with the following additions. Section N, unfinished business item, Imperial Road update.
Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Lewis moves, Councillor Cerna seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Disclosure of pecuniary interests is next. Deputy Mayor Widner.
Drain, let's see here, which one is it? D14, Z1024, and I believe it's the Newell drain. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So noted. So next, we are going to change the typical order of the agenda and move immediately into closed session, since we have a guest who's helping us facilitate that portion of the meeting. So if there's anyone watching, we'll proceed with the closed session, and in about 30 minutes, we'll resume the regular portion of the program. So may I have the motion, please, to move into closed session?
The council move in closed session at 7:03 p.m. pursuant to section 232(2) of the Municipal Act 2001 as amended to discuss the following: a labor relations or employee negotiation matter regarding a staff performance review in the CAO department, section 239(2)D.
Thank you. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Leach moves, Councillor Wilson second. All in favor? That is carried. Come back, everyone. We're ready to move out of closed session with the motion.
The council move out of closed session and reconvene at 7:42 p.m. in order to continue with its deliberations, and that council provided staff direction on the following items discussed in the closed session.
Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Cerna moves, Councillor Leach seconds. All in favor? That is carried. So next we move to announcements. Councillor Wilson.
Get the donut off my face here. I had a couple different things. There's the first one is, well, it's all about the Thames Valley School Board and local high school, local feeder schools, and the cuts that are coming. The first stuff that I was basically made aware of was the cuts to the music program. Last year, my son took music repertoire, and it was for half a credit. They went in a couple days a week from 7:30, and then did basically it was band and then guitar band. He went to sign up for it this last year, and it had been cut. Some of it is at the board level. Some of it seems to be at the school level. And so the music program, it's, that's for all the kids. Doesn't matter your talent level. That's for everybody. So while they're cutting music, they've also, this one just came in from the Elmer or from the London Free Press. They're going to be cutting a bunch of the shop programs, and they have it's basically the technology Red Seal program, great program for kids in all sorts of different trades, and now they're chopping that. So while they're making these cuts, they're also bringing forward a new program for you can get school credits for hockey. So I think we've got some priorities way out of whack. The rural schools are getting cuts in music and technology. The schools in London aren't seeing these same cuts. And unfortunately, what used to be a partnership between Middlesex, Elgin, Oxford, and the City of London is now completely London. There's no one in the place that lives in Elgin County that has a high executive position, and they've forgotten that we exist. And London schools get, not whatever they want, but they're definitely a priority. And someone's got to stick up for rural schools and the cuts that are being made here. The problem is once you start cutting all these programs, then kids go to places where they have the programs. And we don't want to be hollowed out because we're not getting what we equitably should be getting as rural municipalities and rural kids and rural schools. We want them to stay open. We want them to have the same opportunities. And having a London-centric board making decisions like these is detrimental to our rural community.
Thank you for bringing that to the community's attention. Again, we need to pay attention and contact the trustees and just stay on top of this. Thank you. Okay, I don't think there were any other announcements. After the meeting. Unless it's, so maybe we can consider another item. We already approved the agenda. So at the moment of the approval of the agenda, if there was a new item that had to do with council business, that's when we need to mention it. So there are two types. There are things that are for just community awareness, or there's a specific action or consideration for council that would go under business. So let's, I'm assuming it's not specific for this evening. It's not time specific, so we'll discuss after the meeting. Thank you. So your item, Deputy Mayor Widner, will go under unfinished business in the committee of the whole because it's an update on the previous. So we'll get the hang of it. So it is business because it involves action from our staff. So we'll keep it under business. So no, last time you were under unfinished business in the committee of the whole. So thank you. Okay, so that brings us to adoption of minutes from the previous meeting. So that was November 7th. Any errors or omissions? Seeing none, motion please.
That the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on November 7th, 2024 be adopted.
Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Lewis moves, Councillor Wilson seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Next on the agenda are a couple of public meetings. We'll begin. Where's my sheet here? Thank you. So the first public meeting is regarding the zoning bylaw amendment application. So we'll call that meeting to order with the motion, please.
That the public meeting relating to the zoning bylaw amendment D14 Z10 24 of John Michael and Jennifer Shackleton be called to order at 7:48 p.m.
Thank you. Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Wilson moves, Counselor Leach seconds, all in favor? That is carried. So this is a public meeting as required by the Planning Act to allow any person an opportunity to make representation with respect to a proposed zoning bylaw amendment relating to property located at Concession 10, Part Lot 4, Concession Gore, STR, Township of Malahide, and known municipally as 51570 Lions Line. Clerk Adams, what method of notice and when was the notice given to the public for this meeting?
The public meeting was advertised in the Aylmer Express for 2 consecutive weeks on November 6th and 13th. In addition, affected property owners within 120 meters were sent a notice by mail at minimum 20 days prior to this meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Steele, welcome. Can you provide an overview of the application and let us know if there were any additional comments received?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This zoning bylaw amendment before council this evening applies to 51570 Lions Line. The lands currently contain Shackleton Auctions, which is an existing auction sales establishment. During the previous township official plan review, otherwise known as Official Plan Amendment 20, the existing use was recognized in the township's official plan in a specific policy area, which recognized the use that had been previously existing. Currently, the auction use extends over 2 separate parcels, which are both under the same ownership of the applicant. And so a future consent application is also anticipated to sever and convey a portion of the farm parcel at the adjacent farm property to consolidate Shackleton Auctions within one contiguous parcel. And so the zoning bylaw amendment has been submitted to rezone both the current property at 51570 Lions Line, as well as lands proposed to be severed and conveyed from the adjacent parcel. And this zoning bylaw amendment would just, again, recognize the existing auction establishment use, as well as permit a site-specific provision for an increased maximum coverage for outdoor storage of 60%, whereas the bylaw requires a maximum of 25%. This is being due to that the main sales items with Shackleton Auctions are agricultural equipment, which require large amounts of space on the property to display them as part of their auction taking place. Staff reviewed the application, find it consistent with the provincial policy statement, as well as conforms to the County of Elgin and township official plans, as well as conforms to the intent of the township zoning bylaw. It is known that site plan control approval will be required as a condition of the forthcoming consent, just to regulate the existing development as is, and as well as any matters relating to stormwater management, parking, etc., that can be addressed. No comments have been received from agencies or members of the public at the time of submission of this report, and so staff will recommend that the application be approved. And that concludes my presentation. I have 2 questions from members of council.
Thank you. Before I open it up to council, I'll ask if there's anyone in attendance. Mr. Rowe?
Turned on. There we go. Good evening, everybody. Dave Rowe, the agent. This has been a work in progress for a good number of years, getting it recognized in your official plan, and then moving forward with the zoning amendment. And I put together a draft site plan for staff's consideration, which they have looked at. And also, my client's plans had changed over the years, and they've basically now gone to online auctions for the bulk of what they sell. And I'm always amazed at all the different things that they have to sell. Having been a regular attendee at the Thursday night auctions for years, so they certainly have changed with the time. As you know, they have numerous times through the year, in particular, have large farm equipment auctions. And if you've been by there more recently, they've got tractors and combines and everything everywhere. And again, that's turned into be a very successful part of their operation. So we're quite pleased to have moved this along, get the zoning in place, and then we will be submitting the severance application to the county, and then have the property separate from the farm. Historically, if you look at the assessment maps, it looks like there had been 2 severances, and I gather there had been, but this goes back to the 1970s or 80s. Nobody understands really why or whatever. So we've been able to take care of that as part of this process as well. So everything should be neat and tidy. And I'd like to thank staff as well as council for your support to bring this thing finally together. Thanks again. Any questions? I'm here to answer.
Okay, thank you for that additional context. Any comments or questions from members of council? Okay. Seeing none, thank you, Mr. Rowe. So there's no further discussion. Please be advised that any person wishing further information regarding the passing of the proposed bylaw amendment should contact the clerk. And for now, we'll proceed with the adjournment of this public meeting.
The report number DS 24-57 entitled Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application of John, Michael, and Jennifer Shackleton, Co-David Rowe, relating to the property located at Concession 10, Part Lot 17, Concession Gore, STR 51570 Lions Line be received, and that the zoning bylaw amendment application number D14Z1024 of John, Michael, and Jennifer Shackleton relating to the property located at Concession 10, Part Lot 4, Concession Gore, STR, and known municipally as 51570 Lions Line be approved for the reasons set out in this report.
Okay, mover and seconder, please. Counselor Wilson moves, Counselor Leach seconds, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Have a nice evening. And now we can adjourn.
That the public meeting relating to the zoning bylaw amendment D14Z10-24 of John, Michael, and Jennifer Shackleton be adjourned at 7:55 PM.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Serna moves, Counselor Lewis seconds, all in favor? That is carried. Okay, we'll proceed. Next is a public hearing for a minor variance application. So council will adjourn its regular meeting in order to sit as a committee of adjustment under section 45 of the Planning Act. Clerk Adams, we have the resolution for that.
That the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of Malahide be called to order at 7:56 PM and that Mayor Dominique Giguère be appointed chairperson for the Committee of Adjustment.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Lewis moves. Counselor Serna seconds, all in favor? That is carried. So the purpose of this hearing is to consider an application for a minor variance as submitted by Will and Eva Dick, the authorized agent, Caitlin Crowley of Zelinka Primeo, relating to property located at Concession 3, Part Lot 20, Parts 1 and 2, concession south of Talbot Road, known municipally as 6501 Springfield Road. Mr. Steele, could you provide an overview of the application and let us know if any comments were received, please?
So for this minor variance application, the subject lands are an existing residential lot located in the hamlet of Mount Salem. They're previously subject to a provision or a consent application that was conditionally approved in October of 2023. As condition of that approval, they're required to obtain a minor variance to permit a reduced lot frontage for the proposed retained lot. And so the applicant is seeking a reduced lot frontage of 18 meters, whereas the zoning bylaw requires a minimum lot frontage of 25 meters. Staff reviewed the application against the 4 tests set out in the Plan Act and have found that meets the intended purpose of the official plan and zoning bylaw. The application is minor in nature and is desirable for the appropriate development of the subject lands. No comments have been received from agencies or members of the public as of the time of submission of this report, and so staff will recommend that the application be approved. And that concludes my presentation. Have any questions from members of council?
Thank you. Do we have the applicant or the agent online?
Hi, yes, this is Caitlin Crowley, planner with Zelinka Priamo. I am here as the agent on this application. I have read the staff report and agree with staff's recommendation, so I'm just here to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Great, thank you for that. And is there anyone else in attendance online who wishes to speak to this application? No? Doesn't look like there's anyone else. Any comments or questions from committee members? Member Wilson.
Since this is, I guess so far below the minimum frontage, but it's basically just going to be a driveway to the back of the property. I'm assuming they'll put the house back there. So does this open us up into any other spots where it's, well, if it was just cut off of the 18 and there wasn't the big part of the back? Would that lead to people trying to shoehorn things in if we give approval on it?
Mr. Steele, could you comment on that, please?
Through Madam Mayor to the counselor. So yeah, part of the consideration of this application is the context of the subject land. So in this case, the lot in question is irregular in shape or flag shaped. And so, it has area for development, but just due to the narrow frontage as well as the location of the existing dwelling, is why the proposed reduced lot frontage is being sought. So as part of these applications, we consider each application on its own merit on a case-by-case basis and evaluate the context of both subject lands and surrounding areas. So all of those factors can be considered as part of staff's evaluation of an application. So the approval of this application does not guarantee that any other landowner can obtain a variance for a reduced lot frontage for their lots. It's all evaluated based on again those 4 tests of the Planning Act.
Thank you.
Thank you for that question. Any further comments or questions from the committee? Seeing no further comments or questions, thank everyone for your input, and I'll now ask the committee to make their decision on the application with the following resolution.
The report number DS 2456 entitled Minor Variance Application of Will and Eva Dyke, authorized agent Zalika Priamo Limited, Co. Caitlin Crowley, relating to the property located at Concession 3, Part Lot 20, Parts 1 and 2, Concession south of Talbot Road, 6501 Springfield Road, be received, and that the Township of Malahide Committee of Adjustment approve application number D13 MV 0824, and that the approval shall be subject to the following conditions: that the minor variance application only applies to the retained lot as shown on the submitted site plan.
Mover and seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Widner moves. Counselor Cerna seconds. All in favor? That is carried. And the adjournment of the hearing?
That the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of Malahide be adjourned and that council meeting reconvene at 8:01 p.m.
Mover and seconder, please. Counselor Lewis moves. Counselor Wilson second. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, next we move to approval of business, so the consent agenda. So for items that were previously considered. So for this week, we only have the recreation software, right? Okay, so we'll proceed with the resolution for that.
That all items listed under approval of business from November 7th, 2024 council agenda be approved and the recommendations listed in part below be adopted.
Mover and seconder. Counselor Leach moves. Counselor Lewis seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Next on the agenda, we have the unfinished business of the commemorative asset dedication policy. I'm going to recommend, we have received additional inquiries just prior to the meeting, so I think there's room for further discussions with community members and further consideration. So I'm going to suggest that we don't discuss it in full unless members of council have additional comments for staff to add to the thinking process in this policy. Otherwise, like I said, we won't consider it or consider passing the policy or adopting the policy this evening. Councilor Lewis.
Can I just make a motion that we defer it till the next meeting so we can go over the latest information that's been provided?
Yeah, we can proceed with so you move the deferral. Do I have a seconder? Councilor Wilson. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Oh,
Comments?
yeah,
So before we've called the vote?
I just think that Kelly had some good points and some other background on stuff that sort of changes part of what our decision needs to be. So let's go right along with that deferral.
Yep, that makes sense. There's no immediate rush for at the moment, so I think just doing it carefully and through conversations, that's the whole point of having this process of not approving on the same night. So thank you for that. So if there are no further comments, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that is carried. This brings us to new business. And under new business this evening, there's an application for consent to sever. Mr. Steele.
Yes, so before council this evening is consent application D10-E93-24. This application applies to property at 9982 Hacienda Road. The owner of the adjacent property 9962 Hacienda is proposing to purchase portion of this property that is owned by Catfish Creek Conservation Authority to provide additional land to construct a dwelling and accessory building at 9962 Hacienda. The proposed severed parcel is approximately 1.2 acres in size and is being requested as there are setbacks required to an adjacent rail corridor to the south, and some additional land is required to accommodate a dwelling on the property. Council had previously approved or done first and second reading of a zoning bylaw amendment to rezone these lands to permit residential uses, and that is waiting or will be brought back to council for final passing after the consent is conditionally approved. Due to natural heritage features on the property, an environmental impact study was prepared and concluded there be no negative impacts subject to mitigation measures being implemented during tree removal. Additionally, a noise and vibration study was completed due to the proposed dwelling being or a reduced setback to the adjacent railway line. And again, that study also concluded there be no negative impacts on the future residential dwelling, provided that certain mitigation measures were applied, including architectural and design features to be implemented, as well as warning clauses that would be attached to any future purchase and sale agreement that would notify potential purchasers of noise or other impacts from being adjacent to a rail corridor. All these mitigation measures would be implemented through a development agreement, which would be required as a condition of any consent approval granted by the County of Elgin. Staff have reviewed the application and found that it meets applicable criteria under the provincial policy statement, county and township official plans, and provided that recommended conditions are applied to that approval. And so staff are recommending that this application be supported by Township Council. And that concludes my presentation. I have no questions from members of council.
Thank you. Questions, comments? Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through to Mr. Steele. Eric, there's a part in your report that said there's 16.5 meters along Glencola line. Can you explain exactly to me where that is? Because I don't understand that.
That's 16 point, or through Madam Mayor to the Deputy Mayor, that 16.5 is the frontage of the proposed or frontage of a small piece of land that applies to Catfish Creek Conservation Area's parcel. So 9982 Hacienda is owned by Catfish Creek Conservation Area, and majority of frontage is along Hacienda Road, but there's a small sort of flag shape that extends north and meets on Glencola line.
I won't see it when I go by though. Okay, thank
Odd shape, yes. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll proceed with the motion, please.
The report number DS 2455 entitled Application for Consent to Sever number E93-24 of David Blatz be received, and that the application for consent to sever of David Blatz, Code Civic Planning Solutions relating to the property located at Concession North Gore, part lots 16 and 17, and municipally known as 9982 Hacienda Road be supported for the reasons set out in this report, and that this report and the recommended conditions be forwarded to the Land Division Committee for its review and consideration.
Thank you. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Wilson moves, Deputy Mayor Widner seconds. All in favor? That is carried. The next item under new business is the Newell Drain. Mr. Gombe?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Report PW 2439, the Newell Drain request for improvement and encroachment. As council is likely aware, in late 2022, the owner of 11525 Walker Road submitted a petition for drainage in order to alleviate some potential drainage issues on their property. At that time, an engineer was assigned to the file to look into this. Through the course of time, the property has exchanged hands and is now under new ownership. The new owner, after meeting with the engineer on site, has decided that they don't necessarily want to proceed with the drainage works there. However, also through that initial investigations of the drainage work by the engineer, it was found that the property owner at 10813 Walker Road, which is further south down the line, had constructed a pole barn, which is actually physically located on top of the Newell drain. Therefore, staff are recommending that the engineer be directed to work with the property owner at 10813 Walker Road to rectify that encroachment onto the municipal drain at their cost. As well, there will be some of the initial engineering costs apportioned back to the owner at 11525 Walker Road in order to clean up this whole situation. So our request here is to redirect George Vrieken, the engineer from Spreed Associates, to complete this work with those two landowners paying all the costs. If there are any questions, I would gladly answer.
Thank you. Counselor Wilson and then Counselor Leach.
How old is the pole barn?
Through the chair to Councillor Wilson, the pole barn is newly constructed, meaning it's been built in, I believe, within the last year or so. If you look at the image on page 58, it was still under construction when the engineer was out doing that initial investigation.
I just don't remember this one coming across or through here in council for approval on for a building permit. I don't remember this location.
The building permit would not have come to council for consideration.
Okay.
You mean the permit for the barn,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So those don't require council approval. And Counselor Glinski, I see your hand. I have Counselor Leach just ahead of you, and then I'll pass it to you. Counselor Leach.
Thank you, Madam Chair. How does a situation like that occur? Is it just someone got their markers wrong or did they not know there was a drain under there when they placed the building? Like, can you give me some context as to how a building ends up on top of a drain?
Through you, Madam Mayor, to Councillor Leach. Essentially, what I've been advised in this situation is the property owner did not construct the building in the location that had been previously identified on the building plans. So their original submission had identified that the drain was here and you must maintain these setbacks. It was discovered by our drainage superintendent and the engineer that this building had in fact been built in very close proximity to the Newell drain. We then went out and had it physically located. That's where you can see that those footings actually have just missed the pipe. And now we're in the situation where this landowner has recognized their role in this situation and are working with our staff to have that drain rerouted around that building so that we don't have any future problems.
Thank you.
So Counselor Glinski.
Madam Mayor, my comment was very much the same as Councillor Leach. My question was more specific, though. Was there a building permit ever issued for the construction? And if it was, why it ended up on top of the drain? Thank you.
So thank you, Councilor Glinski. So I think Mr. Godby, you want to further confirm?
Yeah, that is the case. They did go and get a building permit. It's just when it came to field installation, it didn't go in the exact place that the permit had. So now we got left in this situation, which we're looking to get fixed up.
CEO
Thank
Diaz?
you.
Thank you, Mayor Jaguar. In terms of the development process, where we would be looking for anything pertaining to drains and in terms of location would be through the site plan control process. So when we're approving any sort of building, we would make sure that there's a site plan registered, and we register that site plan on title. Part of that that's the main area where we will check for all sorts of setbacks, including any sort of drains that are there on site. That being said, if an individual chooses to not put it exactly on that location that's been approved as per site plan, then that becomes a bit of an issue, because the municipality would have technically only approved it to be where we have approved it on the site plan. But we don't really go out there with measuring tapes if we're checking for any sort of inspection thereafter.
So just to clarify, so anyone who's requesting a building permit is given an understanding that there is infrastructure below as well as above ground that they would need to steer clear of?
Mr. Godby or?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, through you to Councillor Leach. In instances like this, in order to prevent this type of work, we have actually relatively recently modified our building permit process, where the CBO does consult with our drainage superintendent, recognizing that there are lots of municipal drains out in the agricultural areas, just to make sure that we don't have these conflicts. So that process was followed. They did have that initial comment that, there is the drain there. It needs to be located in the field, and you need to be X number of meters away from it. It's just when it came to the actual execution in the field, that part did not quite happen as it should have on paper.
Thank you.
Okay, good discussion. Thank you. Any further questions or comments? We'll proceed with the motion then.
The report number PW 2439 entitled Newell Drain Request for Improvement and Encroachment be received, and that George Varican of Spreed Associates be redirected to prepare an engineer's report to address the drain encroachment pursuant to Section 78 of the Drainage Act, RSO 1990.
Thank you. Mover and seconder. Councillor Serna moves, Councillor Lewis seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, we can now proceed. Next section on the agenda is bylaws. Resolution, please.
That the following bylaw be now read a first, second, and third time and finally passed. 2465 Shackleton rezoning 51570 Lions Line.
Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Wilson moves, Councillor Lewis seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Next, we will move into Committee of the Whole. A motion, please.
Resolved that we do now move into Committee of the Whole.
Mover and seconder, Councillor Serna moves. Councillor Leach seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, so for the Committee of the Whole this evening, new business for consideration. There's the draft sewer budget. And Director Boylan?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll be presenting an overview of the 2025 sewer budget. So our objectives tonight are to set the sewer rates for 2025, approve budgeted expenditures and revenues, approve the 2025 capital work plan, and assess the financial position of our sewer services. So for context, wastewater services are fully funded through sewer rates, similar to our water system. Property taxes are not used to subsidize the service. The system serves approximately 200 connections in Springfield. In 2023, the township did approve in principle a sewer rate study completed by Watson and Associates, which recommended annual 3.5% increases from 2023 to 2032. During 2024, the township approved the 2024 asset management plan, which echoed the sentiments of that rate study, supporting the need for an additional 3.5% rate increase per year. So where do resident sewer bills go? 46% of it goes to annual life cycle funding. So this is the replacement of essential infrastructure used to provide the service itself. We have 6% in staffing, predominantly related to the manager of water and wastewater services. We have a contract with Aqua, who operates the system on our behalf. We have some facility-related costs. We own 2 pumping stations that supports the system. We have an allowance for system repair should anything need to be fixed. And we pay the town of Elmer for treatment-related costs. We ship our wastewater through to their lagoon facility. And we have some other costs relating to the SCADA system, which is the electronic monitoring system to detect if there's a problem or a leak. So for capital for 2025, we do consult with Aqua every year. They present a recommended current year capital plan as well as 5 years out. So I've got a list of projects there listed on the left. They total 53,500. Over the 5-year forecast, the average expenditure is 62,000, and annual contributions to the reserve are expected to be approximately 265,000. So this is a conscious effort, if you read between the lines, to contribute more to reserves than draw from them. The idea being to build the reserves over time, echoing what we discussed over the summer in our asset management plan. So this is what our sewer reserve will look like, hopefully by 2030. So right now we have a little bit over $1 million. We haven't closed out the 2024 year, but it's going to be a little bit over $1 million. And then by the end of the 2030 forecast, we're expected to have a little bit over 2.2 million. So this has been provided as an appendix to my report. It is also the funding strategy that was adopted as part of the asset management plan. So the idea is that the current system's replacement cost is valued at 38 million. We have 200 connections. So funding the system solely through rates does not seem something that would be feasible for our residents. So the idea is to build our reserves over time and let investment income be the predominant source of financing for our future infrastructure requirements. So we've done some modeling through the asset management plan. We think that approximately 80% of future capital costs can be funded through investment income solely and not user rates. So this is a really value-added strategy for our residents, but it does require rate increases over the life of the assets. It's important to build those reserves so they have as much time as possible to accrue that investment income. So in line with our rate study recommendations, we are requesting another 3.5% rate increase for 2025. The impact on our residents will be $42 per year, or $3.50 per month per household. And I've got the rates there on the left. So a quarterly fixed charge would be $313.75, an increase from 2024's rate of $303.25. That concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll open it up for questions. Councillor Leach.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the strategy to build reserves is excellent. Is there a downside in terms of the government seeing that we're trying to have such a large reserve? Is there going to be a reduction in potential grant monies? Like it from our perspective, it's amazing, but how is that viewed outside of Malahide?
I can't speak for the province or the federal government directly. From what I've seen, I've applied for a fair share of grants in my time. I've never heard of that being the case. I would take that to be more of a myth than anything. If we have a higher rate, what I've been told is that it shows that we're proactively trying to finance the system. I see it as a bit more of a positive. And if that rate tends to be like a bit higher than other systems, I think they take that into consideration as well. But infrastructure replacement grants have really dried up over the last few years. I don't think taking a sit back and wait approach is what's going to be best for our residents. I think being proactive and trying to finance the system as much through external funds, not through user fees, as we possibly can is the way to go. And this is our best option right now.
Thank you for your work.
CO Diaz.
Through you, Madam Mayor, and just to respond to Councillor Lisa's question there too. I think part of the application requirements for a lot of grants also is to showcase our financial statements. And I think part of that is they want to make sure that they're able to see that we can confidently execute the projects. Wherever the province is giving money, they want to make sure that that money is well spent. And I think if we can show that we utilize our funding really well and we take care of our finances, I think it just builds that Malahide would be a strong partner for any funding down the line.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Through to Adam. Adam, I know after Walkerton, the government basically forced you to put a lot of money away because they didn't want to have the excuse, you don't have the money. You better get the money and you better be putting it away. Is that same principle applied to some of the sewage systems like this system? You better have enough to fix it in case something major goes wrong, because $1 million probably wouldn't go far if we had a big failure.
There's no requirement for the township to hold any amounts of reserves. They provide no metrics in that regard. They do encourage municipalities to build their reserves because this kind of financial planning is not new. This is the optimal way to replace your infrastructure. I think in the case of where you have some sort of emergency reserve, the province allows us to take out debt. They provide us a debt ceiling that we're not to exceed. The general expectation is for us to not hit that ceiling, like leave some room in case of an emergency. So that's what we've done. We actually have a lot of debt capacity here at the township. So I would imagine financing any emergency situation would not be a problem for us. But yeah, aside from that, there's no metric that the province downloads or imposes upon us.
Okay, thank you. But having a slush fund isn't a bad thing when it comes to having repairs coming up. So I agree with it. Thank you.
There are no further comments, then we'll proceed with the recommendation from the committee.
That report number FIN 2428 entitled 2025 draft sewer budget be received, and that the 2025 draft sewer budget and sewer system user rates be approved.
Okay, so that's the recommendation to council. Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Widner moves. Councilor Lewis seconds. All in favor? That is carried. The next item for consideration by our committee is the video surveillance policy. Is that yours, Clerk Adams? Go ahead.
The township has installed security cameras across its facility over the years, and a review of the operations has revealed the need for a formal policy to govern their use. This report proposes the development for a comprehensive policy to establish clear rules for accessing, viewing, recording, disposing of camera data. The goal is to ensure consistent practices, protect the integrity and confidentiality of captured information, safeguard personal privacy, and comply with relevant surveillance regulations. If you have any questions, myself or Nathan would be happy to answer.
Questions, comments? Councillor Glinsky.
Madam Mayor, just a quick question. Does anyone have any idea of what this is costing the township as a package? In other words, the whole thing, what's it costing? And does the cost warranted? Thank you.
I'm not sure who wants to comment on that. CODS?
Yeah, through you, Madam Mayor, it's something where we would have to look at it. In terms of the costs, it's generally not something too substantial. Usually, with any sort of surveillance systems, you're paying initially for the hardware itself, and thereafter, if there is anything, there may potentially be a subscription that would be very minor for the actual recording system or the user interface in which you actually go into and utilize it. Having procured it for another municipality, it was not anything significantly too expensive, between I think $5,000 for hardware.
Thank you for that. Anything to add, Mr. Gubby?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Mayor. I think just to provide some additional clarity for Councillor Glinsky, this is a policy to recognize all the existing installations that we have. Like, so these are cameras and software that we already own and maintain. So it's not going to be a new capital cost coming to add cameras at this point. We're just looking at, we recognize that we have these cameras and that in today's legislative world and of privacy and protection, that we have to have a policy that it explains why we have these cameras and what we do with that information. So we're not looking to add more and increase costs. It's just because of the existing sites that we already have.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further questions or comments? So again, because we're in committee of the whole, this will go to council for final approval. So it gives us time if you come up, if there are any other questions or comments from the community, as everybody gets a chance to have a look at the policy after tonight's discussion. That will be the opportunity to do that and contact staff if you have any concerns. So for now, we'll proceed with the recommendation from the committee.
The report number clerk 2409 entitled Video Surveillance Policy be received and that the video surveillance policy be approved.
Mover and seconder. Deputy Mayor Whitner moves. Councillor Wilson seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Okay, next under unfinished business, Deputy Mayor, you have your update, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I guess it was a week and a half ago or something like that. We had a bit of a meeting down at the South Fire Hall. The OPP were there, the mayor was there, myself, Jason Stephen, and Peter Duchek to discuss the problems with the turning lanes on Imperial Road, which really are turning into passing lanes. We invited two of the residents from the area. We got good feedback from them, and there were some many good suggestions. Some of the suggestions, well, they want the road put back, but yet one of the major users of that, with having a lot of people stop by the residents, that the road has never been better for them. So that was good to hear. Biggest problem, according to the OPP, is uneducated drivers. Like, people don't understand road signs, they don't understand lines on the road. So they are going to put new, larger signs for passing, for no passing. Afterwards, we went out and did a little bit of an on-site, and that was great, because we actually, sometimes it's hard to say this, and this is wrong. So they're gonna get rid of about half of the no parking signs, which is sign pollution. There's so many signs out there, I don't think you could read them all if you wanted to. So they're gonna put no new larger signs for no passing. They're gonna actually put the wording, I understand, under them that says no passing, in case you can't understand the sign. They're gonna upgrade some of the pavement markings, and there's gonna be more police enforcement. So hopefully that'll be coming soon. I don't know, you were to get some of the pavement stuff done, but the weather hasn't been great. So how's that progressing?
Mr. Gubby?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. just on that point, the paving markings, we had intended on, adding some pavement markings, basically delineating, in the through lanes, the arrow that shows you that you're just supposed to go straight. And that way in the turning lane, you have the turning arrows. That was one of the suggestions that had come through the OPP as being relatively effective in keeping people's minds as, hey, I'm not supposed to leave this lane. I got to stay in the lane. The concern that we have is we're not going to be able to actually get that painting done this fall. The weather has turned and the pavement contractors have just advised their equipment's done for the year. So that will be something that will be looked at in the spring. Sorry, the other signage changes, the signs have been ordered. As soon as they're in, we're going to do that.
Thanks for that. And I'm glad we had that little onsite and there's going to be some changes. So I don't know what the next step will be, but hopefully we won't have a next step. Thank you.
Yep, we'll continue to monitor, try everything we can. So thank you for that update. So I think that's all for unfinished business and there's no new business. So correspondence. Any comments, endorsements?
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Widner and then Councillor Leach.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Number 3, the town of Pelham and the Corporation of McGarry Good Roads Association establishment of an Ontario Rural Road Safety Program. I guess they're really recognizing there's more fatalities on rural roads than maybe other places. So if something can be done with that, would be greatly appreciated because every week we're hearing of fatalities and sometimes in the middle of nowhere and I don't know what's causing them, but anything we could do to help would be welcome. Thank you. I do too. We can't say it.
Thank you, Councillor Leach.
I would also like to support the Corporation of the Township of Larder Lake and their infrastructure requests. As well as, yeah, the town of Pelham is spot on.
Thank you for those. There are no further comments. The resolution.
Resolved that items 3 and 4 be supported and the remaining items be received and filed.
Mover and seconder, please. Deputy Mayor Widner moves. Councillor Lewis seconds. All in favor? That is carried. We can now adjourn from the Committee of the Whole meeting.
Resolved that we do now move out of Committee of the Whole and reconvene the regular council meeting.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Serna moves. Councillor Lewis seconds. All in favor? That is carried. And we've already done our closed session, so we can go straight to confirmatory bylaw.
The bylaw number 2466 being a confirmatory bylaw be given first, second, and third readings and properly signed and sealed.
Mover and seconder. Councillor Serna moves. Councillor Leach seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Which brings us to adjournment.
The council adjourned its meeting at 8:37 p.m. to meet again on December 5th, 2024 at 7 p.m.
Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor Widner moves. Councillor Serna seconds. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening.